Meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Management Committee on January 11th, 2023. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. The first item that we have on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. If there aren't any changes to the agenda, without objection, we'll just go ahead and move forward with the agenda that we have before us. We have our draft meeting minutes from December 14th. Everybody's received a copy of them in advance. Are there any edits or changes, things that we want to amend to those draft minutes? All right, then seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from December 14th.
So moved.
It's been moved by Lilligren. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Musay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. That passes unanimously. We don't have anything on our non-consent business section of our agenda, so we're going to move into information. We have two items today. Our first item is FTA DBE program analysis, and we have Ashanti here. Welcome, Ashanti. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon,
Yes.
Madam Chair, Council and Committee members. Ashanti Payne, Assistant Director of the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity. And I'm here to talk about and definitely communicate good news relative to our semi-annual FTA DBE report. As you may know, as part of our continued receipt of federal funds through FTA and USDOT, we have to report results and information relative to our administration of our Federal Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. And we do that in June and December each year. We did submit our report on time prior to December 1st to FTA, and I'm here to share those results. So our current three-year triennial goal for 2021 through 2023 is 14%. We will be establishing a new triennial three-year goal that we have to submit to FTA in August of this year for our 2024 through 2026 triennial goal. I do want to note that for the first time in our history, we will be seeking an outside third party to do that work. We feel that, an independent look and a more thorough evaluation is warranted, and so we're going to be doing that this year. As I said, we definitely had some good news. First half totals for DB participation towards our 14% goal was 20.9%. Our second half results were 17.72%. for a year-end federal fiscal year total of 18.22%. And I am told that if not the highest, that's one of the highest in the council's history for our DB participation. This is a breakdown of the participation across racial and ethnic categories. Definitely a more equitable distribution than our previous year's report. I also would note that we had participation from both Black women-owned businesses as well as Hispanic-owned women businesses, which we had no participation from those groups the prior years. Mm-hmm. Also, I know that council members in the past have kind of requested to see what the directory looks like in comparison to how the jobs were awarded across categories. So this is a breakdown of the DBE directory, and then it shows how many contracts and dollars were awarded to each of those groups. So if you want to look at how that breaks down. These are some major contracts that were awarded over the period. I just want to point out that we are very dependent upon our large capital projects. That's where we get a lot of our DB participation in our professional engineering and consulting services. I will point out as well that we are on a cycle where we haven't had any large contracted services through MTS, and those can get very large, and we have historically not had any DBE participation on those contracts, so that is something that we still need to figure out and is a challenge for us. Some success stories, 2 DBE firms were awarded prime contracts over the period. 2 Hispanic-owned firms were awarded prime contracts, 1 male and 1 female, and 3 indigenous-owned firms were awarded contracts. Some of the process improvements that we've incorporated that we think have contributed to some of the progress was some of our targeted outreach. Again, we did notice the gap in terms of women of color, business owned by women of color, and we did do some focus and targeted outreach to those groups to provide information and access to council opportunities. Our mentor protege program, we continue to see success through that. We've had businesses participate that were previously had done no business with the council and has done significant business with the council. We made some process of program changes that we've talked about, our goal setting process and our contract initiation memo process. And we are continuing the efforts that have yielded results, and we will continue to use those methods. Just in comparison, again to our 2021 report, we achieved 14, so we just barely met the goal last year, and there were $8 million awarded to DBE, and then but in 2022, $52 million awarded to DBEs, and 18.22%. And this is again a comparison broken down by ethnicity. Like I said previously, there were categories where we had gaps, especially from women of color, and that changed significantly this reporting period. And with that, I will pause and rest for any questions.
Great. Does the committee have any questions? Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you. A great report, great work, Ashanti. This is more for my information. So we got the numbers of the different contracts awarded, etc. But I was wondering if there's a specific area, and keeping in mind that these are just federal transportation dollars. So in that universe, is there a particular type of industry or service that we're not seeing as many DBEs as they are out there, that we should be doing a better outreach? What I'm getting at is that perhaps we're doing great in getting folks doing the actual construction, in being part of the process, but not in, I don't know, technology or some of the other technical or professional areas that go with this transportation area. So, do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, Madam Chair, Councilmember Gonzalez. I believe I understand what you're saying. And yes, that is something that we look at and pay attention to. And one of the strategies that we are implementing is looking at some of our expiring contracts, especially master contracts that are like 5 years, that have historically not had DBE participation. And the landscape have changed since 5 years ago and before. So for instance, the signs, the pylons that we make, we have DBEs that can do that work, can get those parts, and are able to do that now. So that next cycle, when those contracts come around, we hope to find those opportunities and make connections to those opportunities.
Excellent, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Ashanti, have we shared this with the Equity Advisory Committee, or do they get a regular update on this type of information as well?
Yes, we have, I don't believe we shared this year's year-end report with them. We've shared reports in the past. And definitely we'll look forward to the opportunity to share that with the Equity Advisory Committee for sure.
Okay, great, yeah, I don't know, again, I served on it for a little bit and how the agenda set and all that, but this is really good information, and to have their insights around it too would be helpful to the council, I think. Sure, so, yeah, this is great work. Any other comments, questions? Well, we really like to see this type of progress, hopefully we can carry it forward. I know it's not easy, but it's great work. The only other thing I would ask is that, there's a pipeline of getting people ready and prepared to do this kind of work and eventually become that business owner. And I think I've probably asked this question before. We've done really good work around community outreach, finding the businesses and getting them prepared and changing maybe some of our ways that we bring them into the process, however we can with federal guidelines. But do we work with colleges, technical colleges, community colleges, or people that are doing training out there to help build the pipeline of women and minority people who might have that taste for being an entrepreneur and a business owner, so that we can continue to, demonstrate to those places how much money that there would be available, and if we had more folks coming through. I don't know if we get at that level, but I always think about pipelines and how we can continue to grow, the businesses that would be eligible to participate in our region.
Madam Chair, Council and committee members, definitely good recommendations. We haven't had a real concentrated focus area on that, but now in one of the strategies that was up there was the new engagement and development unit, and they will have a focus around that. They've got a brand new, hopefully we can come back and present our strategic plan and see if we are generating results to this committee. But yes, it's something that we haven't focused a lot of energy on previously, but we definitely want to, and we'll definitely take that recommendation to heart.
That's great. Anything else? All right, great work. Appreciate you sharing this with us. Looking forward to, more information as we move forward, and more of this. And I would just say this is a great story. Met Council gets in the news for all kinds of things, but this is one that, I think we can be really proud of, but yet still know that there's a lot of work to do. So kudos to everybody on the team.
Yes, thank you. That's the challenge.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Ashanti. All right, our next item of information for today is the Continuity of Operations update, and we've got Kathy Matter, the Manager of Business Continuity Program. Thanks for being here, Kathy.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. Today, I'll be talking about, the last time I talked with you, I provided a COVID-19 status update and just kind of wrap up. Today, I'll be talking about the work that I do at the Met Council, the Business Continuity Program, talk about program highlights for us in 2022, and program focus on objectives for 2023. A little bit of background for you, because this is our first time talking about the program at a high level in front of you. The program was started in late 2010. There was no program at the Met Council when I was brought in to begin this work at the Met Council. Our work is enterprise focused, involving all divisions, all Met Council divisions and services. And basically the scope and areas of responsibility for our typical program management, the vision and the strategic plan for the program, making sure that we as an organization align with statutory requirements of us in this space, which for us are in the form of governor's executive orders, federal requirements and regulatory oversight. And then we're always plugged into risk identification and risk mitigation in the work that we do. And then continuity of operations planning, COOP, is the acronym used in this organization, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And then crisis communications and mass incident notification management fall to my program as well. At the highest level, what we do is help this organization figure out what are we going to do, what's our plan if the bad thing happens to us. And the bad thing can be a lot of things, come in a lot of different sizes and shapes and forms. COOP. At the Met Council, I like to tell people, I'm a grammar nerd, and I like to tell people it's a noun and a verb. On the verb side, on the action side, it's work. It's the pre-planning and documentation and recovery strategies implementation that we need to do as an organization to figure out what we would do to respond to and recover from a crisis. And then COOP, the noun, is the result of the planning. It's the actual document that we come up with in collaboration with whatever group is providing those services to map out that plan. All of our work is based on an established leadership-approved priority of services, support services, and technology in these organizations. We don't arbitrarily impose criticality to any of those things. We do all hazards planning, what's called all hazards planning, which is just basically high level. We're planning for a worst case scenario of total loss of services due to a building disappearing and the contents of that building disappearing. The exception is pandemic planning, which is a human resources crisis. And the work that we do is never done. You can't do this work and put it on the shelf and walk away from it, or it's almost immediately obsolete if nothing else from an HR perspective, because people are coming and going all the time. This work benefits the region, the Met Council, and our employees by identifying risks, mitigating those risks, knowing what our critical services are, and then setting that stake in the ground to define and build resilience, and then build upon that resilience. God bless you. Our work reduces the potential severity, financial, and recovery time impacts of a crisis, and it increases our efficiency and effectiveness of response, recovery, and resumption of services. And here I'm just gonna hang my hat on the pandemic planning that we did, because we hit the road running when that happened. You still had to improvise, adapt, and overcome. You still had to pivot, right, Pops? But doing that planning, doing that advanced work is just huge. The work is mandated by the internally, the Met Council's Continuity of Operations policy and procedure. At the state of Minnesota, we have two governor's executive orders that drive and mandate our work. One is the Minnesota Emergency Operations Plan, which defines our responsibilities for a community-wide disaster, community-wide crisis. And then the other executive order basically mandates continuity of government planning for us as an organization. These executive orders are in the process. I would guess within the next month, the new executive orders will come out. So that was a process that we've been participating in over the past year, reviewing, refining our commitments and our obligations in those, in the Minnesota Emergency Operations Plan and the work that we do. So, and then last but not least, we do have regulatory oversight and audits. I participate in audits on a regular basis, and I've listed just a handful of ones that I've participated in over time. And I participate because they ask the questions: are you doing this work? Are you doing continuity of operations planning, disaster recovery work? A while ago, there was a committee member who, these are his words, Stephen Chavez. He said, this work is our fiduciary responsibility. We're responsible for delivery of these services, and we're responsible for figuring out how we're gonna recover them. Status of this work here at the Met Council: we have the vast majority of our baseline plans done. We have some gaps on the technology side, technology systems that were scheduled to be retired, sunset, something new coming in. So we've got some work to do in that space. The vast majority of our work at this point now, though, is what I call a management status, where we're in this cycle of exercising and updating and refreshing our plans on a regular basis to make sure they are viable, they are current, they're relevant for us as an organization. 2022 highlights for the business continuity program. We packed up COVID and put it away. Hallelujah. We supported the rollout and implementation of hybrid working at the Met Council. We completed, as you know, the lessons learned, information gathering, analysis, and presentation for you. It's still, I believe, is on the docket to roll up to the Council of the Whole, I believe. And then in progress, and this will take us a while, the lessons learned and incorporation of those into the almost 100 existing continuity operations plans that we have at the Met Council. And just giving future generations of the Met Council an idea of how we responded to and what each division and work unit specifically did to respond to COVID and deal with COVID as a work unit. We continued the evergreen work of evolving, updating, and exercising our continuity of operations plan and what I call moving the needle on our program maturity and our organizational resilience at the end of the day. And then at the very end of the year, we participated in a governor's executive order mandated cyber incident tabletop exercise with state agencies. It was the first exercise like that state agencies performed. They were required to do it by December 28th, and we were invited to sit at the table with them and participate, which we did. There were 5 of us total participating, either remotely or in the room. And it highlighted to us that we have a cyber incident response plan. It's a good plan, it's a solid plan, it has passed multiple audits here at the Met Council, but we also got a lot of good ideas for how we can make it better, which is really, at the end of the day, why you exercise. You just always want to get better. And then the other thing noteworthy for us in 2022 was the continued evolution of our crisis communications capabilities. We have Assurance Notification Manager, which is our mass incident notification and communication software. That continues to be deployed operationally at the council. Transit Control Center, Metro Transit's Transit Control Center is the last group to come back. They explored it for a while, stepped away from it, and now they've come back and are embracing it again. Environmental Services uses it a lot. We used it a lot during COVID. And then the other crisis communications tool that we have is the GETS and Wireless Priority Service, which is a federal program that just guarantees telecommunications access in the event that networks are disrupted in a community. So we did, my last bullet there, we did complete a multi-day enterprise-wide exercise with our GETS and WPS account holders last year. We had good participation, but our goal is to get better participation this coming year.
Kathy, just one question if I may. I think you were talking about bullet point number 1, and maybe I misheard you, but were you talking about different divisions adapting into that tool, I guess, maybe?
Madam Chair, yes, they use it operationally. So Environmental Services uses it when they don't have enough staff to run a wastewater treatment plant. And they use it to get the word out to a specific subset of employees who have the experience, the skill sets, the ability to step into that emergency on a moment's notice. Metro Transit, like I said, they are now looking at it for communicating about network crises, their transportation network crises, and just getting the word out as quickly as possible to those who need to know. So different applications, different uses. Here in this building, we use it for medical alerts, to get word out to our staff who might be in the building who are medical emergency trained. And so there's a lot of, obviously from a business continuity perspective, that is why we have that tool to address a larger crisis, but it can be used for smaller, like I said, organizational crises as well. Right? We actually used that tool when vaccinations were available on an ad hoc basis, or we had to limit the number of people that, there was a group of people that it was available to, but we had to release that availability in kind of bite-sized groups. And so we used it for that as well, to communicate to our employees.
And is it a text notification system type?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, well,
Yeah.
it's so on the far end, it's software as a service, but it actually communicates with your personal email, your work email, your personal cell phone, your work cell phone, and your home phone, that Assurance Notification Manager system. We get an export every Monday from PeopleSoft of employees and employee contact information that populates into that database. And so at the most, it's a week old. That information is a week old for being able to communicate in a crisis. We try to limit, when you're sending out a message, if you don't want to blow up someone's, every modality they have of communicating with them, this tool has the ability to limit, I just want to communicate to you via your work issued cell phone, that type of thing. Yeah.
Great.
For 2023, we have our sights set on continuing evolution of our cyber incident response plan. There is one gap in that plan, always has been, what I call the data incident response team. So really the cyber incident response plan to date has been a plan that deals with the technology disruption of a cyber incident event. It does not deal with compromised data, whether or not data has been compromised, what data has been compromised, what are the implications of it, who do we need to communicate with. That is the one gap in the plan. And with Scott Larson at the table, we are plugging that gap this year. And then the other thing that we are putting under the magnifying glass, I don't know how far we'll get with it this year, but we have known areas within this organization of what I call single points of failure, human resource single points of failure, people who are the only people who know what they know and do what they do. Really, really valuable people. And just throwing the covers off of that and figuring out how to do a risk assessment enterprise-wide that will best capture that information. A lot of those people don't like to self-disclose that they are a single point of failure, and so it's a unique area to kind of wrap our arms around, but we need to wrap our arms around it as an organization. So that's on our plate this year. Also on our plates is updating our command plans. We've had turnover. We need to assign people to open roles and responsibilities in our command ICS structure. We need to get them trained and educated and informed. And then we're also updating that training curriculum, mostly with some things that fell out of COVID-19 and what we learned there. Also what FEMA learned there. We've gotten, information from them as well. And then we'll do at least one tabletop exercise at the command level, but most likely more than that. Technology, I've talked a little bit about on the technology space. We need to reassess our criticality of technology. Some of the technology on the list has gone away, and I don't necessarily know what it's been replaced by and what the recovery strategy or recovery abilities of that is. So kind of a recalibration in this space as well. And then service continuity, that goes back to the bullet point earlier about really being in a plan management phase. But we still have work in this space to do to keep those plans up to date and viable and relevant for us as an organization. In that space, something new that I'm doing is meeting with the leaders of each division and with a service level statement that I've developed with my recommendation of where I see their vulnerabilities and the bulk of their work needing to be done and getting their buy-in and approval of that.
How's that going?
That's the service level statements are in development, they'll be done by the end of the month and then those meetings will, as I get them done, the meetings will be scheduled.
And those are divisional in nature.
Right,
Okay.
divisional and RA will have its own version of that as well, yes.
Okay, so PD, transit, environmental services.
Metro Transit,
Yeah.
MCES, Community Development, and MTS.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it'll be at that
I just
level.
have to say, I appreciate this, because when I was chair of audit, a lot of this sounds familiar to me as we were doing some audits that were either required or we were just doing our own internal audits, and there would be that moment in time where like, oh, you know, we have a weakness here, or data breaches could occur there, and so
Right.
I'm just wondering, you know, hopefully it all folds together, because you could see in any organization, there can be some vulnerabilities and worries.
There are vulnerabilities and worries,
Yes.
always.
Appreciate your work there, yeah.
Thank you, Madam
Okay.
Chair, committee members. And last but not least, in 2023, we'll continue our care and feeding of our crisis communication systems and just really pushing it out to the organization as a vital tool for us to be able to communicate at the necessary levels in a crisis. And that's what I have for you today. Do you have questions?
Does anyone have any questions, comments? Councilmember Gonzalez.
Just a comment and a question. The comment was, you had that slide with all the different disasters. You know, I lived in Mankato in '98 when the St. Peter tornado hit next door, and I had to drive that night to my sister-in-law's house to help her, you know, get out of the ruins of her house. And the chaos and confusion was total on that day. And there were things that came out after the tornado that people hadn't even thought that would be affected by a disaster like this. And I remember clearly that the students at Gustavus Adolphus College, which is a small college in St. Peter, nobody had thought about, from the city, really about what's gonna happen with those students. Cell phones were not that common, so how to identify if they were still around. They weren't residents of the city, they were students on student housing. So the city folks, administrators really didn't know who those kids were, whether they were okay, what's gonna happen to them, are they gonna stay here in St. Peter or go to their respective homes? So that's a long way of saying, how do we even start considering the things that are not even on our radar, but may have an impact as we're trying to address any possible disaster? Do you have a way of thinking way outside the box or way outside of the universe to see all the possible things that can go wrong or might affect your plans?
Madam Chair and committee members, the short answer is no.
Yeah.
You know, the short
That's
answer
what I
is,
thought,
the
but-
short answer is no, but all, this work isn't done in a bubble. It's done in collaboration with the person who provide the services, deliver the services for the Met Council. And you just hope that you get synergies and at a minimum identify the most probable scenarios, the most catastrophic scenarios, or impacts is probably a better word. And then plan recovery strategies and continuity of operations plan documentation that address those things that you know, and that's why, all this work that my employee Lisa and I do, every single project we do is a collaboration project with the team that we do it with, because we don't know your work or your work. Only you know your work, the intricacies of your work, the nuances of your work, the vulnerabilities of your work and your staff. And we're in it together. And that's, what we strive to do with every plan is just build the best, most viable plan. I take pride in the fact that the continuity of operations plans we build are built to be working tools. They are built to be working documents. They are not a pile of papers and policies and procedures that no one's going to read or do. They're intended to be actionable plans. They may or may not be the first thing someone grabs in a crisis, but hopefully it'll be something that they grab when they have a moment to breathe and think, and they know they did the work, and they know they possibly talked about it and put something in their plan, and then they go to their plan.
Any other questions? Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How do we, throughout a year, build in, elements of the continuity of operations plan for things that are changing in real time? Things like cybersecurity, we're learning new things, there's new attacks, new kinds of things. We're seeing all these sort of attacks on infrastructure right now, electrical systems and things like that. Do we factor those things in and so you see sort of the dynamic changes in the environment right now?
I factor them in from the perspective of they are something in my work plan that is done every single year. Those really, really sensitive, always moving, always changing things. Cyber's a huge one. Cyber's just a huge one and such an unknown because, the moment a cyber event happens someplace, a distributed denial of service or malware or ransomware, whatever, it almost instantly is an old toy, and the smart people are out there figuring out something new, something better, something more sophisticated. And, in defense, fairness, whatever, to those people who are involved in the cyber incident response plan, all they can do is say, this is what we're going to do. These are our steps one by one to contain, to mitigate, to do the things that we do. But, almost always they're going to have to do fresh analysis. They're not going to know exactly what it is that they're dealing. They're going to have to do analysis, investigation, and kind of reach some conclusions. So. The cyber incident response plan is in the hopper this year for its first internal tabletop exercises and multiple exercises. My goal is a minimum of 2 in that space with them this year, and then we've done just in December the higher level state-driven tabletop exercise.
Oh, I have just a quick follow-up question, and this might be a follow-up question. Do we have some sort of cybersecurity insurance? I know I need to have it now for my business, so it was a new ad this year, so I'm kind of curious.
Yes, Madam Chair, Council, Committee members, yes, we do have a cyber insurance policy. It's becoming more and more of a process to go through that and to complete the application and to make sure they understand what we have in place. I can tell you that with the staff that we've added to IS this past year, it's been phenomenal. It's put us in a really good spot. It's put us in a spot where we could actually get insurance, and a lot of public entities cannot get insurance.
Yes, it is challenging. That's why I wanted to ask the question, and yes, I'm very thankful for my IT support team as well, because it is a lot. It's very complicated.
Yeah, it's becoming very complicated, and it continues to go in that direction.
All right, thank you.
And if I may, Madam Chair, I just wanted to respond to a couple questions that were asked about the process how to identify the unknowns. That's really part of this larger enterprise risk framework that we're looking to roll out in 2023. We'll have a framework in place where we'll have this governance structure where those types of questions are asked on a regular basis and get people thinking about that. So what are the unknowns? What concerns you? And ask that at different levels throughout the organization. So that'll be coming up this year.
It just reminds me too, when I was at the city of Plymouth and we'd be working with our chief on all kinds of things, drills with high schools and preparedness and all of that. And he said something where, you know, the bad actors only have to get it right once. We have to be right all the time. You know, so it was also training, I think, the team's memory muscle is to just, you know, practice and work this stuff, because even if it's a scenario that we hadn't specifically planned for, a lot of that stuff would come into play to react quickly, or even spot things before they happened, before they went down, like pay attention to, you know, whatever things that would bother you about your area of expertise. So I really am grateful that this work is taking place. Councilmember Musse, were you gonna ask something?
Question, Madam Chair. Do we have crisis communicators in-house?
Madam Chair, committee members, yes, we do.
Great.
And they'll be part of this process where things come up, we work through them. In fact, that's a part of the incident command.
It's
I
part of
believe.
incident command, the PIO, and we have, our crisis communications PIO is so good that the state of Minnesota stole her from
Yes.
us for pandemic.
Yes.
Well,
Madam Chair, committee members.
Yes. And I would say, too, that, you know, this is important work. And I think it's ambitious work and I mean that in the best way, right? Like, this is important and we need to be on this, and I really appreciate just even the succession planning around this and getting people to feel comfortable. Again, a lot of this I felt like we uncovered every now and then in audit committee, and you're like, you know. So this gives me even greater comfort. I would say too that hopefully the divisions make the necessary capacity to do this work. I know we're already stretched. I know we're not still fully staffed where we might need to be in certain divisions or many of our divisions or maybe all of our divisions, but this is priority one. And so I believe this committee would strongly stand behind you, and everybody who leads a piece of this work has to, if they can't show up how they need to show up, they need to then figure that out, because it's that important. And then two, I appreciate that you've got completion of multi-day enterprise-wide exercise with successful participation rate of 85%. I don't know what your goal is, but I think 85, and I think you mentioned this, we can boost that up.
Right.
When you
The
go to
goal's
school,
always
85 is like
100%
what, a
out of
B
share.
minus, I don't know. So I think that's why, again, kudos to you for working on this framework and putting together plans and meeting with all the folks involved. But I hope everybody's giving it top priority with all the other things that have to be top priority. And if they can't get that capacity where it needs to be, hopefully you can have those honest conversations too, because considering what we do across this region and the critical systems that we have in place, it's just of the utmost importance that these leaders help their teams get to where they need to be. And also it's interesting to, you know, how I'm sure we have redundancy built hopefully in the systems here and there, right? Because, you know, bad actors out there know how to find your areas of weakness, but considering again the important work that we do, again, I just have to say, in my almost 4 years at the council, we're in the news a lot, but this is the kind of stuff that makes people's everyday life go well. And you don't think about it not going well until it does. And I think Met Council, for a lot of reasons, is at the quality of life level for people across our regions and our businesses that are able to operate in the way that they do because of the services that we provide. So I just think this is a fascinating presentation, and I have almost been itching for it for a few years now. And it's striking too that I think you had said earlier that we didn't have anything in place until 2010, which is mind-blowing. So I don't know how we compare with other public agencies, and I'm sure you go to conferences and you're all talking about that as well, and you maybe cross-pollinating as people come and go from other agencies, but I commend you for this work. So
Thank you.
it's exciting, and we'll get more updates, I'm sure.
Yeah, Madam Chair, committee members, we'd like to see this as more of a regular cadence coming before this committee and other committees too, because
Yes.
this is really the great work that Kathy and Lisa have done over the years put us in a position to respond to the pandemic the way we did. And I cannot say enough about what they did. And I would say the divisions have bought into that, because it showed when it came time to actually implement this plan, the incident command, we did. And they were right there, and they made the adjustments. But as we start rolling out this enterprise risk management framework, certainly business continuity is an integral part of that, to get on a regular cadence where we can update the committees, talk about what we're doing, talk about the process to address the questions of what are the unknowns. And to get people thinking about that, and then start reporting that back to the council members. I think it's really important work, so.
We don't know what lies ahead, but you guys are the superheroes without capes, so keep up the great work. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anything else on this item? Councilmember
Madam
Lewis?
Chair, I was just gonna apologize, I mean, I don't know if folks heard me before, I have a deadline in my day job that I'm working on, so my apologies for splitting my attention, I didn't wanna seem disrespectful to the staff.
Thank you.
We totally understand. So, way to go for being able to multitask. Yeah.
Devices.
Well, thank you for coming before us. We look forward to, more updates along the way and, good job. Yeah.
Thank you.
And with that, we have come to the end of our agenda, so without any objection, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Early today.
Early today.